In today's video, we take a deep look into one of the most heartbreaking realities in South Africa, a nation where too many women live in fear, too many voices are silenced, and too many lives are lost. As November 21st approaches, women across the country are preparing to rise, to stand still, and to speak for every sister who cannot speak for herself. This is the story of South African women, their pain, their struggle, and their call for change. Across towns, villages, and cities, countless women in South Africa face the constant threat of murder, rape, and abuse. Every day, heartbreaking headlines tell of women whose lives were cut short, mothers, daughters, students, wives gone too soon. Behind each of these stories lies a painful truth, that for many women, home is not a place of safety, love, or peace. It is a place of fear. It is where the danger lives. For years, reports have shown that South Africa has one of the highest rates of gender-based violence in the world. Studies say that every 3 to 4 hours, a woman is murdered, often by someone she once trusted. Others are raped, assaulted, or emotionally broken by those who should have protected them. And yet, so many cases go unreported, hidden behind silence and shame, while survivors who speak up are too often met with doubt, judgment, or a justice system that moves too slowly to care. But this tragedy did not begin today. It is a wound that has deep roots, one that goes back decades through generations of pain, silence, and neglect. During South Africa's long struggle against apartheid, women played a powerful role in fighting oppression. They were leaders, activists, and mothers of resistance. But even then, while they stood side by side with men in the streets for freedom, many were still facing another kind of war at home, the hidden war of gender-based violence. After democracy came in 1994, the new South Africa promised equality for all. The Constitution gave women legal rights and protection. For a while, there was hope that things would change. But the old patterns never truly went away. Economic inequality kept many women trapped in abusive homes. Unemployment, poverty, and alcohol abuse worsened the problem. Many men, shaped by generations of violence and control, continued to see women as property, not partners. Over time, the situation grew worse. Reports of rape and domestic abuse filled newspapers. Women marched in the streets, holding pictures of victims. Names like Karabo Makona, Reva Steenkamp, and Uyini Mwediana became painful symbols of a nation in crisis. Movements like #AMINext and Women for Change began to rise, demanding that the government take real action. Each year, more and more women joined these movements, tired of living in fear, tired of burying their friends and daughters, and tired of being told to stay strong while nothing changed. Today, that anger and pain have grown into a powerful national voice. On November 21st, 2025, women across South Africa will come together for a nationwide shutdown, a day of silence meant to shake the nation awake. They will wear black in mourning and purple as a symbol of strength. They will stop work, stop spending, and stand still for 15 minutes at noon. 1 minute for every woman murdered each day. Their message is clear. We are tired of being silenced. This time, we will silence the nation. This movement is not just about one day. It's about decades of suffering that can no longer be ignored. It is about the little girls growing up in fear, the mothers raising children alone, the women who walk home at night clutching their keys in fear, and the countless victims whose stories were never told. As the world turns its eyes to South Africa for the G20 summit, these women are making sure that leaders, both local and global, see their pain and hear their cry for justice. They want gender-based violence and femicide to be declared a national disaster, to be treated with the same urgency as any other national crisis. Because the truth is, South Africa is losing its women, not to disease, not to war, but to silence, to neglect, and to violence that never ends. So, as November 21st draws near, this story serves as a reminder that change does not come from governments alone. It comes from people who refuse to give up, from women who rise, even after being broken, from voices that speak, even when the world isn't listening. And as we tell this story today, may we remember every woman who lost her life every survivor still standing, and every person fighting for a safer tomorrow. Because this isn't just South Africa's story, it's a story for every nation still struggling to protect its women. As the cries of women echoed across South Africa and beyond, the world began to take notice. The pain of these women, their stories of rape, murder, and abuse spread far beyond the borders of the country. Global media outlets, human rights organizations, and even the United Nations started calling South Africa's gender-based violence crisis what it truly is, a national emergency. And with this growing pressure, the government could no longer stay silent. Authorities have often spoken out, promising justice, reforms, and protection. Over the years, several laws have been passed, laws meant to protect women and punish abusers. The Domestic Violence Act, the Sexual Offenses Act, and the establishment of Thuthuzela Care Centers were all steps meant to make it easier for victims to report abuse, access counseling, and seek justice. The government also set up a national strategic plan on gender-based violence and femicide, aiming to strengthen law enforcement, expand shelters, and bring communities together to fight the problem. But on the ground, the story feels different. Many survivors say these promises live only on paper. Police stations are often the first place a woman runs to after being attacked, yet many have been turned away, blamed, or not believed. Investigations move slowly, evidence goes missing, and too often abusers walk free. In some cases, victims have even been killed while their protection orders were still being processed. For many, justice comes too late or never at all. The government has also faced heavy criticism for failing to allocate enough funds to fight gender-based violence. Shelters across the country are underfunded and overcrowded. Social workers are overworked. In rural areas, many women have no access to safe houses or legal help. Meanwhile, activists continue to say that South Africa's leaders speak loudly during Women's Month in August, but go quiet for the rest of the year. Still, change is not entirely absent. In recent years, a new generation of South Africans, young men and women, has begun to rise, refusing to let silence win. Universities have started anti-GBV campaigns. Communities are holding men accountable and demanding education on consent and respect. Judges have begun handing out harsher sentences to perpetrators, and more police officers are being trained to handle GBV cases with sensitivity and care. Even President Cyril Ramaphosa has repeatedly called gender-based violence a second pandemic, acknowledging that it kills more women than many diseases. The government launched a GBV command center, a hotline offering 24-hour help to victims, and promised to expand shelters and counseling services. But despite these efforts, the violence has not stopped, and that's why the upcoming November 21st shutdown has become such a powerful symbol. Activists say they no longer want apologies, statements, or symbolic days of mourning. They want action, real, lasting action. They want every police officer to be trained to handle abuse cases with care. They want protection orders enforced immediately. They want stronger penalties for rapists and killers, and justice for every woman whose life was stolen. They want the government to treat this not as an isolated issue, but as a national disaster, a crisis that deserves urgent, coordinated intervention. Internationally, South Africa's crisis has drawn attention from global movements like UN Women, Amnesty International, and several human rights councils who have urged the state to strengthen its legal and social response. In some regions, local leaders are working hand in hand with NGOs to provide safe spaces and education for boys and men, because they believe that ending gender-based violence starts with changing hearts, not just enforcing laws. Yet, the battle continues. For every step forward, there are still countless stories of pain, silence, and loss. The fight is far from over, but the growing movement of women activists and allies gives a sense of hope. Hope that someday soon, a woman will no longer have to fear walking home at night. Hope that justice will be swift and fair. And hope that the cries of today will become the change of tomorrow. As November 21st approaches, that hope is turning into action. Across social media, in schools, churches, and workplaces, South Africans are spreading the message: enough is enough. The shutdown is more than a protest. It's a declaration of life, dignity, and freedom. It's a promise to every woman who has suffered that her pain was not in vain. And maybe, just maybe, this time the world will listen. As the pain of South African women continues to echo across the nation, the rest of the world is beginning to hear their cry. What was once a local struggle has now become a global movement, a call for justice that no border can silence. From Africa to Europe, from the Americas to Asia, people are standing in solidarity with the women of South Africa. The stories of violence, the images of protests, and the heartbreaking names of victims have traveled far beyond the country's borders, touching the hearts of millions around the world. Social media has become the new battlefield of awareness. Across platforms like Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, and TikTok, timelines are turning purple, the chosen color of power, courage, and resistance. From celebrities to students, from activists to ordinary citizens, people everywhere are changing their profile pictures to purple, using hashtags like hashtag Women Shutdown, hashtag End Femicide, and hashtag Justice for Her to show their support. For the first time in a long time, the pain of South African women is not being ignored. It's being felt and shared across continents. Videos of survivors telling their stories have gone viral. Artists are painting murals, musicians are composing songs of resistance, and communities in other countries are planning their own symbolic moments of silence to stand with South Africa on November 21st. The world is watching, and the message is clear. This fight is not just for South African women, it's for every woman who has ever been silenced, beaten, or ignored. Even international leaders and organizations have begun to speak out. UN Women, Amnesty International, and various human rights groups have called on the South African government to act urgently. They've praised the courage of those who are standing up, calling it a movement that could awaken a generation. News networks around the world are now covering the upcoming shutdown, describing it as a global wave of solidarity, one of the largest coordinated actions against gender-based violence in years. In cities like Nairobi, London, New York, and Sydney, small gatherings are being organized to mirror the South African protest. People will wear black, light candles, and stand still for 15 minutes at noon in their local time zones. It's a symbolic act, but a powerful one, showing that when one woman hurts, the world should not remain silent. And as the world changes its colors to purple, South African women say they finally feel seen. After years of pain, silence, and injustice, the world is listening. But for them, this is not about sympathy, it's about action. They don't want the world's pity, they want the world's pressure. They want leaders to take responsibility, systems to be fixed, and abusers to be held accountable. On November 21st, as the world stands still with South Africa, the message will be one of unity and strength. A message that says, we have had enough of the violence, enough of the silence, and enough of the excuses. The fight against gender-based violence is not a South African fight, it is a human fight. And maybe when the world turns purple and the streets fall silent, something deeper will awaken, a shared understanding that until women everywhere are safe, none of us are truly free. On November 21st, the streets of South Africa will not sound the same. This will not be an ordinary Friday, it will be a day of silence, of unity, and of defiance. Across cities, towns, and villages, thousands of women will rise, not to go to work, not to open shops or attend classes, but to shut down the nation. It's being called the Women's Shutdown, a nationwide protest organized by the group Women for Change, and it will mark one of the largest actions against gender-based violence in South Africa's history. But this will not be a march filled with songs and shouting. It will be a silent revolution. Women have chosen silence because for too long they have been silenced by fear, by pain, and by a system that failed to protect them. Now, they will turn that silence into power. Across the country, women are being urged to stay away from work, whether they are in offices, schools, factories, or homes. They will withdraw from the economy for one day to show just how much the nation depends on them. They will stop spending, stop producing, and stop participating, a symbolic strike to say, without women, this country cannot function. At exactly 12 noon, something extraordinary will happen. Women from every walk of life will stop whatever they are doing and stand still for 15 minutes. Some will kneel. Some will lie down. Some will hold up pictures of victims. Each minute will represent one of the 15 women who are killed in South Africa every single day. This 15-minute standstill will be a national moment of mourning and a reminder that behind every statistic there is a name, a story, a family, and a broken dream. Those who gather in public spaces in Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban, Pretoria, and smaller towns across the country will wear black to mourn the dead and purple to represent power, dignity, and resistance. Some will carry signs with messages like, "Enough is enough, stop killing us, and we are not safe." Others will march peacefully to local government offices or police stations to hand over petitions demanding urgent action. So, what are they addressing? Their demands are clear and deeply human. They want the South African government to finally declare gender-based violence and femicide a national disaster, to treat it with the same urgency as any other national emergency. They are calling for better funding for women's shelters, faster response from the police, and justice for every victim whose case has been ignored. They want stronger laws that protect women and children, laws that don't just exist on paper, but actually work. They are also demanding education and reform for boys and men to be taught from a young age that respect and consent are non-negotiable, that strength is not found in violence, and that love is not control. Activists are calling for a cultural shift, one where violence against women is no longer normalized or hidden, but openly condemned by everyone from politicians to neighbors. This shutdown is happening just one day before the G20 summit in Johannesburg, where world leaders will gather to discuss global issues. By protesting on the 21st, South African women are sending a powerful message not only to their own government, but to the entire world. Don't come here and speak about development, peace, and progress while women are dying in our streets. See our pain. Hear our voices. Take action. And so, on that day, the nation will feel their absence in the workplace, in classrooms, in marketplaces. The silence will be heavy, but meaningful. It will say what words have failed to express for decades, that the women of South Africa have had enough. Enough of fear, enough of pain, enough of burying their sisters and daughters. When the day ends and the world looks back at November 21st, it won't just be remembered as a protest. It will be remembered as the day South African women stood still to move the nation forward, the day silence spoke louder than any scream. As the date draws closer, South Africa stands on the edge of something historic. The world is watching and waiting to see what will happen on November 21st, when women across the nation rise in silence to speak louder than ever before. This will not be an ordinary day. It will be a day of truth, of courage, and of unity. A day when women tired of fear and loss choose to stand together and say, "No more." A day when the silence will not mean weakness, it will mean power. From Johannesburg to Cape Town, from Soweto to Durban, the message will echo across streets, schools, and homes. We are done being victims. We are the voice of change. And as the world turns purple in solidarity, we will all be reminded that when one woman stands, she stands for all. So, as November 21st approaches, let us not just watch, let us take part. Let us share their stories, wear their colors, and raise our voices beside theirs. Because this is more than a protest, it is a movement for life, for justice, and for freedom. And when that day comes, may the silence of South African women be heard around the world, as a promise, as a warning, and as a hope for a future where every woman can live without fear. If this story moved you, share it. Stand with them. Subscribe for more stories that matter. Because together, our voices can do what silence alone cannot. They can change the world.